Greetings. This is Coach Veronica Marie. I'm here to talk to you about your egoic self. This is a short teaching that I will add to my video library. That video library is found on my subscription page. You can find that in the link below. I'm currently testing a subscription page where you can have access to my video library for easy listening and listening at your convenience. Again, that link will be down in the description. The first part of this teaching was about your persona, your personas. If you didn't have a chance to listen to that teaching, it is in my subscription page. And so I will not spend too much time recapping that. I'd like to move on to the ego self or the egoic self. Now, right away, some people call to mind psychologists like Carl Jung or Sigmund Freud. And this ego is not quite the same. So release any pre-existing knowledge because that is not the vein I'm moving in. Your egoic self, for the intents and purposes of this teaching, is the part of you that is conditioned. When I say conditioned, I mean programmed. When I say programmed, I mean you have some rules for life called belief systems that you have acquired through your experiences and through teachings in life. Your egoic self is it contains your conditioned self. It also contains an aspect of your self called the shadow. The shadow is simply the content of your being that you are unaware of, simply put. There are many things about yourself that you are unaware of, character traits that you are unaware of, things you do, you're unaware of, reasons you do them, you're unaware of those reasons. Patterns. One of the reasons you're unaware of subconscious content is because this content is energetically stored. And if the content is not, we call it alchemized or brought to awareness, then your brain cannot perceive it, and therefore your brain cannot assign meaning to it. And anything that is not meaningful or anything that doesn't have a meaning assigned, your brain can do nothing with it. Okay, so another way to put that is the energy in your subconscious must be transformed into a form of energy that your brain can use. And bringing the energetic, bringing the energetic content of the subconscious into a form of energy that your brain can use is called awareness. Your consciousness shifts as you become more aware. As you become more aware, you are able to make different choices. You are aware of your choices, and you are aware of your ways of choosing from your past. So we want as much subconscious material to float to our awareness so that we can really create the reality that we want to create. I hope that makes sense. And so your ego is designed to serve your higher purpose on this earth. Your higher purpose is directed and known by another part of yourself that we will talk about later. When the ego does not serve the purposes of your evolution or your higher self, your ego is in control. And when the ego is in control, it creates a limited existence for you. It creates a limited existence for you because remember, the conditioning of the ego is from your past. These are all past lessons. This is beautiful because we need to live with our past lessons. The problem comes in when the past lessons prevent us from learning new ones. When living by past conditioning prevents us from making different choices, then we have a problem. So the ego is the part of the self that is responsible for our identity. The ego tells us that I am not you and you are not me. We need to know that. We need to know that so that we can make unique decisions for our own life path. So perceiving ourselves as separate is not a bad thing. But sometimes the ego will make that separate feeling a superior feeling. When we begin to feel superior to other people and other beings, then we have a problem. We are no longer operating from our higher purpose. We are now operating from a program part of ourselves called the ego. And the ego can also move in inferiority, make you feel less than others. It's okay to be different. It's okay to have the perception of separate. But the ego will produce power dynamics, superior and inferior. And that is a binary way of being because somebody has to be superior and someone has to be inferior. That means when you get in your relationships, you will engage in power struggles because you're unaware that someone needs to be superior and someone needs to be inferior. This is what happens when the ego is governing our movements. In order to come into a more authentic way of being, we must learn the content of our ego. We must understand what our conditioning is. Because a lot of times we have lived with our conditioning, by our conditioning for so long, we think that conditioning is reality. And remember, other people have their conditioning and they think that is reality. I hope you can see the problem in that. We're living different realities, interpreting things differently, seeing things differently. And if the ego is not about higher self-awareness, then we are acting in unaware ways with other people. We're doing things that we don't know that we do, and we don't know why. And when people bring it up, we deny and refute because we're unaware. The ego needs to serve our higher self awareness for us to become the next version of ourselves, the better version of ourselves, to move away from feelings of being less than or feelings of being more than, feelings of being stuck in a particular pattern. We need to understand the content of the ego. I will come back later with an ego part 2 so we can look more into this conditioning and the shadow. But for right now, I think it's important for you to understand the difference between your personas, because we have several of them, more than likely, depending on how social we are. And then we have the egoic self. I'll come back later and do an ego part 2 once we're done with the parts of the self. When you understand the layers of yourself, you can become more mindful, more creative, more in control of creating your reality. Of course, there's some things we can't control because we live in a world with many other people. But there are some things that are in our control. And when I say our control, I mean our conscious control. Some people say that no matter what is going on, we are creating it subconsciously. I have some thoughts about that, but that isn't the scope of this teaching. Okay, so we are done here. My name is Veronica Marie. You can find me on my website at veronicamarie.com. I will be sure to list the link to my video library. It's growing so that you can be a part of it. Until then, have a beautiful day and we'll talk soon.